Alright, so we're starting where we left off the other day. Sorry for the extra noise. My roommate, he's taking the carpet out of the living room, so that's what you're hearing is behind that wall. But today we're going to take out the carburetors. We're not going to tear them down. We're just going to take them off and get them a little bit prepped. I should have my parts in hopefully in tomorrow, and we'll get started on that process. But here are the carburetors. What we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to take or loosen up these bolts or screws anyway, and it should just allow them to slide off of those grommets. We may have to scoot this air box back just a little bit, but other than that, it's pretty simple, and we will have to remove those cables right there as well, but that's not too tricky. One thing I do suggest you get if you have one of these older bikes is you find the Bible. You find your bike's Bible, and in this case, this is the service manual that I use for this particular bike. It served me pretty well, and it's got a lot of really good information, some diagrams, pictures, and all that stuff. So you know, if you don't know what you're doing, get one of these and it will, you know, at least set you on the right path. So I'm gonna get started on removing those screws, and then I'll show you what the carburetors look like afterwards. Okay, so here's after taking the carburetors out. So just kind of show you what I did. The manual said to loosen these 3 bolts up right here because they're attached to the, or at least that one is. I don't know why it said to loosen those other 2 up, but it said to slide the air box back as far as you could after loosening up the 4 clamps on each little hose. That way you can have enough room to slide the carburetor to this side, and at that point you can kind of get enough room to release the cables. And there's 3 cables. Shit, almost fell over. Alright, so we got 3 cables on here. One mounted up right here, and we had one right here, and the only thing you have to do to get rid of this one is just unscrew that Phillips head right there, and it'll release that. And then the last one you got to release is this guy, and at that point you got your carburetors loose. And this is the side that would intake the air, and this is the side that actually mounts up next to the cylinder head. And here's those 3 cables that we were talking about. This is the one that was just mounted up by the that Phillips, and then these 2 you have to loosen up this guy on both of them, and at that point it'll give you enough slack to unhook the cable. And you also need to disconnect these drain tubes. There'll be 4 of them, and they're just mounted up on the bottom side. Shoot, these guys right here. Get that to focus, maybe some better lighting. Yeah, those are the 4 that you need to disconnect on the bottom of the carburetors. And this thing started running pretty nasty right before I kind of turned it off for the time that I did. And I think what's happened is last time I had these taken apart, I patched up the floats with some gasoline resistant epoxy, and I'm pretty sure this guy is the float that went bad on me again, and I'll have to probably just replace all 4 of them, but we'll check and see how those floats look. Alrighty. Alright, so I kind of got the bottom side of these bowls taken apart. I've already taken out these little dowels. They go through this post right here, these 2 posts, and that's what holds that in. That one, I did that, so that's not how it was. But this one right here, you can see where I had tapped it out with a really small drill bit beforehand, because these are the original floats. Last time I had this apart, both the floats were filled up with gas, and I used the drill bit to tap it out, and then shake out all the fuel, and let it evaporate out. And then I used that epoxy to cover up my little drill holes, and it actually worked out really well. This one didn't have any fuel in it, but whenever I shake this one, I don't know if you can hear it through the camera because the car is driving by on the street, but there's a little bit of gas in there. It just sounds like a little bit of some water droplets kind of just shaking around. And another way you can do it, the camera probably wouldn't be able to pick it up, but you can hold this thing up to the light, and it's kind of, or the sun, and at that point it's kind of translucent, and you can kind of see if there's any fluid in there as well. And I don't know if I want to order a completely new set because these are kind of expensive. These are like $25 a piece, so just in floats I'd be, spending $100, plus shipping to get the damn thing. So I may just peel off the epoxy, or at least on this side, this one right here, may peel that off and let that gas evaporate out, and I'll check the rest of them too and see if they have any gas in them. I think this was the only one that was bogging down on me, because what was happening whenever I was driving it, after it was warmed up, I think this thing would just get soaked in fuel and just sink, and it was draining fuel out the bottom side of the bowl. So once the fuel in the bowl reaches a certain level, it goes down this little chute and out the bottom, and I was just spewing gas like all over the road. So, and considering this is the only like real dirty one compared to the other 4 from whenever last time I cleaned it, I think that's the case. So and I'm also going to be putting new gaskets in as soon as I get my rebuild kits, hopefully tomorrow, and new jets and whatnot. So let me pause it and I'll take off the other 2 now. Alright, so I just unplugged those holes from the epoxy that was on it, and that's how much gas poured out of this guy, or this side right here. This side didn't release any. I'm going to let this sit in the sun probably and let that gas evaporate out, and maybe do a little bit better job at like cleaning it so that epoxy doesn't curl up. This is the bits that I peeled off right there. Looks like a nasty ass booger, but yeah, I think if I do it kind of like I did this one, maybe a little bit cleaner, maybe it won't absorb as much gas. So let me check the other ones now. Alrighty, so I think I may just need to break down and get some new floats, unfortunately. I mean, the epoxy trick is a nice little quick fix, but 3 out of the 4 had fuel in them. This one's really bad, if you can hear it. But let me just kind of show you. We'll peel off these little bits of epoxy, and I'll show you what will happen. Alright, so that's the hole I drilled. Now you should be able to see fuel just kind of drip out already, but we'll take off this other side. So that's see, that's all the fuel that was in there. That's crazy. So I think I'll just need to break down and get some new floats, because I'd be doing this at least once a year, you know, patching these things up. At that point, it's just not worth it. Makes it a pain in the ass. But I mean, it is a pretty cool little trick, I guess. But the only problem is like, you have to know where the hole's at before you drill it out. And I think the reason why these all had the hole in the same area, I mean, that's after I drilled the hole out. But I think whenever they like melt these things together along that seam, it's just a general weak point right there in the center. And I just drilled it all the way through previously. But the way I found it was, if you let this sit out in the sun and heat up, you'll actually see like little pools of where the gas is leaking out of. And I put one out in the sun. I don't know if we'll be able to see anything, but we'll see. Test it out. Yeah, see, I don't know if I've let it, it's kind of cooled off here the weather-wise, but if you let it sit out here in the heat, ideally you'd see like some gas seepage out of wherever the hole might be. This doesn't have a whole lot of fuel in it, so that's probably why it's not doing it. But if you have a significant amount of fuel in these and you just let them sit out in the sun, you'll be able to tell where the hole's at. So I think that's kind of a wrap today. I'm just going to kind of put all this loosely back together. I'm going to take all the floats out because they're not worth putting back in. I mean, that's just ridiculous. All that gas that was up in there definitely will affect your acceleration, that's for sure. Alrighty, so thank you for watching today. I'll do a little bit of a video tomorrow whenever I get my parts in, and keep you guys updated. Alright, thanks for watching.